So I'll call the meeting to order, please. Agenda item 2.1, adoption of the agenda, please. Torgerson and Blanchette. Any amendments? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 3.1, adoption of the minutes of the August 8, 2017 regular meeting of council. The recommendation is that the minutes be adopted as presented. Reimer and Torgerson. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 8.1, administrative reports. We have a report and a recommendation that initial approval be given to development variance permit 0217 for the property legally described as lot 25, district lot 7355, Caribou District Plan 23725, to vary Village of Valemount zoning bylaw number 610, 2007, section 7.4.3, to allow for the accessory buildings on the subject property, including the existing shop, to total 1,200 square feet. And the second recommendation is that staff be directed to notify the public of council's intention to consider final approval of the permit at the regular council meeting of September 12, 2017. What is council's wish?
I'd like to add a subject to the placement as per the plans of the CCANs.
Okay. And that's an amendment. Could I have a seconder for Councillor Torgerson? And you agree to the amendment?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does council wish to discuss this in any way? Councillor Reimer?
What's the use of the additional secants?
I don't know. Staff would know.
Your Worship, and do you have any light on that, Ms. Shepherd? Or?
I believe they're for storage. It's additional PC cans. And the original plans actually show them behind his original shop. So, not visible from the road. But I believe they're simply for storage.
Hey, Councillor?
Follow up. So if they're for personal use, not business or commercial use, is there any way that he has to provide a covering for those so that they're not an eyesore to anybody in neighboring property?
Ms. Shepherd?
The Good Neighbor bylaw does not dictate that you have to put a siding on CCANs. They're seen as accessory buildings, but it would fall under Good Neighbor if we had a complaint that they were unsightly.
Anything further? Councillor Blanchette?
It says here that he's going to side the existing shed in one of the CCANs that's up next to the shed. So that will be in case the other two you won't see from the road. I drove by this evening.
Okay. Anything further, Councillor Reimer?
That's all, thanks.
Okay. Nothing further? So council's ready for the question then. All in favor? Carried. And recommendation 2, that staff be directed to notify the public of council's intention to consider final approval of the permit at the regular council meeting of September 12, 2017. Torgerson and Blanchette. Any discussion here? All in favor? Carried. 8.2, BC Hydro and paving reserves. That the information regarding the BC Hydro in lieu of taxes and paving reserves be received. Okay, and it's Salt and Blanchette. All right, and it's open for discussion. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Reimer?
Yeah, I appreciated the information. And I don't think it's necessary to go back and use all of that BC Hydro in lieu of taxes towards reserves for paving. In any event, the little bit of paving that we have left to do as initial paving for long existing streets is very minimal and really shouldn't require anywhere near the amount of BC Hydro money that's paid in lieu of taxes. And any maintenance and repair comes under a different category of budget, and that isn't what the reserves were used for anyway. So maintenance and repair didn't come under weren't being paid out of this. It was only new paving, I believe, right?
It was for the paving and maintenance of all the streets in town.
And the maintenance.
Yes. And that's how I recollect it, because I was the one that made the motion as an alderman. But it was set aside for paving. Now, I understand that the amount is a great deal more than what it was initially. And I would not recommend that all the entire $375,000 per year be put into reserves for paving or for street maintenance. However, perhaps there could be a small percentage in reserves to look after the needs of street maintenance or fixing potholes or whatever. And just even a small percentage of that, so that it wouldn't wreak havoc with the budget and the financing. But there should always be a small reserve. Yes, Councillor.
And we can do that in our budget.
Yes.
For next year.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Torgerson?
No, you had your hand up first.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we go closer into budget considerations, if there are any outlying or concerning budget items for public works or traffic, perhaps we could reestablish a public works committee meeting, and we can make recommendations as we see them.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know how much we would need in reserves, and that is up to staff to determine, but there should always be reserves in every account. There used to be reserves in every account, and I don't know what's happened to them all. Councillor Salt.
There is also, as per the community charter, the establishment of reserve funds where council can, by bylaw, establish a reserve fund for specified purposes and direct that money be placed to credit of the reserve fund. So that could be something, if need be, look at as well.
Yes. Now, this was done by resolution in 1990 when we first got the BC Hydro grant in lieu of taxes. Okay? That's when the resolution the motion was made and the resolution was passed and it was adopted. Okay? And we had, as I said, we had water in the sewer account. We had reserves in the water account and in the sewer account. I don't know what's happened to these reserves over the years. But it was very healthy in 2008, December of 2008. I know the water alone was over 200,000, about 260, I believe. Now it was put towards the filtration project, but the sewer, I don't know what's happened to it. Anyway, we can look at this, and the staff can recommend, as well as the Public Works Committee, they can recommend how much should be in a reserve account for the streets. And I reiterate that I would not expect the full $375,000 to be put into that reserve account, but maybe just a small percentage, so that there's always something to rely on, so that the village doesn't have to borrow money for repairs and maintenance. Okay. All right. So we have the motion and a seconder. Okay. Is there any more discussion or questions? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, I was just looking at our quarterly budget report, and under sewer we have a surplus of $233,000 budgeted, and under water...
Budgeted, but is it present now?
Let's see here, surplus. Because I believe the surplus comes out of our year-end surplus. So it's in the budget, but it's not there right now as per the actual reading.
Yeah, okay. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 8.3, proposed development permit, 935 Cranberry Lake Road. Recommendation that staff be authorized to prepare development permit 0217 for the property located at 935 Cranberry Lake Road, legally described as Lot C, District Lot 7354, Caribou District Plan 18868, to allow placement of a new storage shed on the northwest corner of the property, subject to the proponent finishing the building with fiber cement siding in the color agreed to plans submitted to the village, and subject to the proposed structure having a non-residential accessory use, or 2, that the proponent be required to amend the plans and/or provide further information. What is council's wish? You move 1 or 2?
Recommendation 1, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Salt. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Councillor Reimer, sorry.
Your Worship, I noticed that the recommendation is subject to the proponent finishing the building with fiber cement siding. Didn't I recall that the building itself didn't meet code? Is there anything, is that now a requirement that that building has to be brought up to code? And as long as we're not self-defeating that requirement?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes.
Yes, this building does not currently meet BC building code requirements. The purpose of giving the development permit is so that the property owner can apply for the building permit, and at that time we can ask him to bring it to code, rather than right now asking him to get rid of the building.
Councillor?
That requirement doesn't have to be in this recommendation?
Thank you. He requires an occupancy permit even for a shed, and he will not receive it until he is to code. So the development permit doesn't need to address that, because in order for him to get a building permit and occupancy permit, he needs to meet code.
Okay.
One more follow-up, Your Worship. Is there a time limit of when he has to do this by?
Ms. Shepherd?
We have not addressed that. If council wishes to put in a time limit,
What is council's wish? Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment to the recommendation that this be finished to code with the current recommendations that are already in this, and have it finished before the end of October.
Okay, could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Blanchette seconds it. Is there any discussion or questions? No? Okay. I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Carried. And on the resolution as amended? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Agenda item 8.4, fire hazard removal, remedial action. 1, that the report regarding the remedial action process be received. Torgerson and Blanchette. All in favor? Carried. 2, that staff be directed to proactively engage with residents to abate tree fire hazards through verbal and written means via a letter prior to seeking remedial measures. Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Torgerson, and it's open for discussion if council wishes to discuss or comment on anything. Councillor Torgerson.
I think this will assist in being a little bit more efficient rather than bringing it back to council, going through the remedial action process. Probably cost a lot less, and a phone call and a stamp.
Thank you. I just want to mention here that for the last 2 weeks I've been driving around on every street and every avenue, and there are many trees that are dead trees, the coniferous ones. I didn't detect any deciduous trees that need to be removed. They were all coniferous, the ones that I saw, and they are a fire hazard to the entire town, and they should be removed. I would think that the responsibility lies with the property owner, and I would suggest that they all be advised to remove those trees. Even if I have to mark down the address of where they are and just say they are a fire hazard to the entire town, not just their neighbors. So, anyway, perhaps we could just do a little article in the local newspaper that these trees need to be removed because they're dangerous. And with the fires, Mr. Administrator, you said day 48?
That's right, Your Worship.
Yes, of fires here in BC. And we've been very, not just fortunate, but blessed here that we haven't had any fires. And especially when I see the numbers of the dead coniferous trees. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 9.1, permissive tax exemption. Councillor Torgerson, yes, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have recommendation 1, that a 75% tax exemption be provided to the curling club, or a different percentage of tax exemption be provided for the curling club, which will form part of this resolution, or no tax exemption be provided to the Valemount Curling Club. What is council's wish? Councillor Reimer?
Actually, I'd like to make a motion that we defer this again, seeing that we're under no time pressure to pass these tax exemptions. Evidently, staff did not have time to get us the information that we needed, and I just went online after reading through my agenda and found the information from the District of Sechelt. There's information in there I think that we really need to absorb. I'm sure there's some other districts or municipalities that may have similar policies, but I don't think it's an easy decision to make necessarily, but I think there is some very helpful guidelines, but we probably need the time to think through those and put our situation in perspective and then make our decision for our local.
Mr. Davey?
Your Worship, just to clarify on that for council, so this council meeting is the last time we can actually move forward on a tax exemption.
Okay.
The bylaw has to be in place by mid-October. So moving back 4 weeks takes us into September. So if there's no movement on it tonight, both of these organizations will receive no tax exemption.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Reimer? So I'm just skimming through the District of Sechelt, and property not operated for property or gain and is used exclusively for charitable or philanthropic purposes. Okay. What is council's wish? Councillor Reimer.
So my question, based on what I'm reading, is
Yes.
how much would curling club fees have to be increased in order to meet the any kind of payment for property taxes?
I've had quite a few phone calls. Apparently, the membership fees used to be higher than $100 a year. People who curled in the past said they paid a lot more than $100 a year. And now it's just $100 a year. So, and I have not heard any remarks about raising the membership dues. Yes, Councillor?
I'm wondering if we can, instead of the 75, do 50.
That's good. If it's
Is that
council's
something-
wish, it's up to council. Councillor Salt, did you have any?
Yeah, these two have really caused me a lot of struggle and debate in my own mind, and because we know that the Curling Club has also approached the regional district, and that this is also going to be going for a referendum vote. There's a lot of things up in the air. I also was curious to know if they had paid their outstanding 25% balance that they owed from this year's taxes, and so that, you know, there's a lot of factors I've taken in, and I think what could be a fair option is a reduced rate, lower than the 75, to still give them a break, and then whatever happens with the referendum will be a good indicator for us as to what the taxpayers thoughts and feelings are towards the curling club, and that would help guide us for future years.
If the referendum accepts, if the people accept the tax burden of the curling rink, then the regional district of Fraser Fort George won't have to pay taxes on that building next year. So there are considerations there too. Okay. So are you moving then, Councillor Blanchette, that it be reduced to 50%?
Yes.
Okay, and a seconder for that? Councillor Salt. All right, is there any discussion, or Councillor Reimer, do you have anything to add at this time?
Well, I think in fairness, I would sooner support 50% than 75% and have some of the membership step up to the plate and say if we want to keep curling, we're just going to have to bite the bullet a little bit more and increase some membership fees. So I'll support the 50% amendment.
Some of the residents have pointed out that to golf, it's $700 a year membership. And yes.
And also, you know, I think we need to make different organizations aware too that are benefiting from this, that the village is not obligated to do this, right? This is something we are doing. At any point in time, we could say no, because the village has to look after its own needs and its own obligations, which are water, sewer, and roads. And we have to remember that. And I'm just not comfortable with always asking our taxpayers to give more and more out of their pockets when I sometimes feel that there may not be a need for it for some of these things. So that's just my opinion.
Well, I wonder if our taxpayers are aware of the fact that the taxes that are collected by the village, that the village municipality doesn't even keep 50%. That's all paid to the regional district of Fraser Fort George, to the regional hospital district, to the school district, etc. And we don't even, somebody might pay $1,000 and the village gets to keep $400 for its needs and expenses. The other is given out. Yeah. So I'm going to call the press, and it's time that we did a little interview and gave them the facts and the figures so that they can publish it. It's okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of 50% carried. Okay. So
Worship Claim.
yes, Councillor Torgerson can be invited back. Okay, we have recommendation 2, that a 75% tax exemption be provided to VARDA, or a different percentage of tax exemption be provided for VARDA, which will form part of this resolution, or no tax exemption be provided to VARDA. What is council's wish? Councillor Torgerson.
Move that a 75% tax exemption be provided to VARDA.
Okay, and a seconder, please. Councillor Blanchette? Okay. And it's open for discussion. Yes.
So, as you remember, last council meeting, I was against the tax exemption. So I phoned the general manager of VARDA and talked to him. And I was educated because I didn't know a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know that he's getting a lot of flack right now, and I'm quite upset about that. VARDA does a lot for our town. Not everything, but they are a huge contributor. And the village works in support with VARDA as a diamond supporter, which is a $5,000 sponsorship supporter. So anytime VARDA does any activity, any brochure, any flyer, any poster, if they go anywhere, the village is promoted. And so as a taxpayer myself, I don't mind paying a little bit extra to let everybody know where we are and what we do and stuff. So I just wanted to clear that up, and just wanted to let people know who are giving Curtis a hard time that just maybe give him a call and ask him the questions that you have, because he's more than happy to answer. And I really don't mind supporting VARDA.
Thank you. Councillor Reimer, you wanted to speak? Yes.
Well, based on the information here, again, it's quick decision-making. I'm not sure that under some criteria that Varda would qualify because of their financial situation. But again, it's obviously policy that we make here in our own village, and if the kind of support that is generated back and forth between Varda and the village, they probably bring in a lot more into the village in terms of support. Without Varda, a lot of motels and restaurants probably would not have any winter business.
That's right.
Because there is a lot of that promotion. So,
For council's information, Varda was a Village of Valemount initiative. Mr. Dennis Goddard was the administrator at that time. And this was the entire society, all the registration with in Victoria, etc. That was overseen by Mr. Goddard, and the Economic Development Committee, Silvio Gislimberti, our Economic Development Officer, was already employed by the village. And it's the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association, and as I say, it was a Village of Valemount initiative. Nobody came forward and said, we want to start this. It was a Village of Valemount initiative. So it has always been regarded as a part of the municipal administration, yes.
Another 2 points too that I talked to Curtis about was that he's an employee, and he also employs staff, so they have to have money in the bank.
Yes.
The other thing is that when they have something that needs to be fixed, it's not, a table needs to be replaced or a chair, it might be a building, which might cost $80,000. So those are things that I hadn't thought about as well, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Okay. Opposed, if any?
I would have, it's not that I don't appreciate all that Varda is and does. Like I said, I just have really struggled with the need aspect. I appreciate you reminding us about it being a village initiative.
Yes, it's...
And I agree too, if it wasn't for all the work Varda does, our town would be quite barren in the winter. Empty hotels, motels, restaurants. So I do value all that they do there. I myself, I was considering a possible reduced amount like we had discussed in the previous recommendation as well. And so that's why I've really struggled with agreeing with the 75%.
Okay, thank you. So we have 3 in favor and 1 opposed, and because the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association has always been regarded by those of us who have been around for a long time as an arm of the Village of Valemount, I'm going to vote in favor as well, that we give the tax exemption as moved by Councillor Torgerson, and perhaps next year, once the building and everything is paid for, it can be looked at again. Okay? So we have 4 in favor, okay? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 9.2, Village of Valemount Development Procedures Amendment Bylaw. That the Village of Valemount Development Procedures Amendment Bylaw number 773/2017 be given first and second reading. Motion please, Reimer and Torgerson. Any discussion? Questions? No? Hearing none. All in favor? Carried. Council reports. I'll start, do it alphabetically and stay out of trouble. Councillor Blanchette.
One thing, I had child and youth mental health on the 14th, and we're trying to come up with some long-term solutions or help. Our budgeting is running out in December, and so we're trying to come up with some sustainable plans for mental health in our community. And it's rough, let me tell you. So if anybody has any ideas, please call me.
Thank you. Councillor Reimer?
I believe most of you saw the view that I had from my office for the last few days. Compliments of a friend of mine. And so I was not at any meetings on land.
Okay. On land. Okay, thank you. Councillor Salt?
I was away in Edmonton attending a Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association strategic planning session. Although this particular session wasn't directly a benefit to the village, my costs for this trip were covered by the association, just so that everyone is aware of that. But we're looking forward to implementing what we discussed and try and take the association into the next generation. So.
Thank you, Councillor Salt. And that has always been the policy that the village pays the expenses for the AGM, but any directors' meetings that are subsequent are paid by the association. And this is the 70th anniversary of the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association. Are there any plans for celebration or anything?
There are so many different anniversary dates with the association, depending on all the different historical dates you look at. There were no plans this year, simply because with everything that was going on with Canada 150, the thought was that there were enough different events celebrating that and didn't want to interfere with that. So there may be some thoughts to do something, either next year or in, say, 75th anniversry, which is more of a milestone.
Well, 70 years is quite a milestone too, It was formed in 1947. There's a lot of history there and a lot of work and a lot of achievements to celebrate. Anyway, thank you, Councillor Salt. Councillor Torgerson?
Nothing to report, Your Worship.
Okay.
Very quiet.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. Fishing?
None.
None? Oh my, well, okay. Well, apart from driving around town and having unofficial meetings actually with people who are interested in doing some development here in Valemount, the one official meeting that we had was yesterday, and I invited Mr. Davey to come along, was with our doctors and the clinic manager, and I wish I could remember the titles of the men that were here besides our two doctors. The one from Osoyoos, Prince George, and administrator from Vancouver. And that was rural health. Yeah.
That's right, Your Worship.
Yeah. You don't...
One was the president of the Northern Health Schooling, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
UNBC.
Right. Yes. Okay. Okay, and it was very interesting, and we had one issue that was an idea was presented to resolve the problem that there's no optometrists coming here. And I was made aware of another one today, that there's no physiotherapy available for those who have knee replacements or hip replacements or anything here. So we're going to look into that as well. So anyway, thank you. Motion to receive, please. Okay, Torgerson and Blanchette, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item, okay. 14.1, public comments on items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. Yes?
Point of order 12.1, the outstanding resolutions.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at the following where it says no motion required. Motion to receive the outstanding previous council resolutions, Salt and Blanchette. Any discussion or comments? All in favor? Carried. And so now, again, public comments on items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. Are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none, we'll proceed to 15.1. Notice to proceed to in-camera. Recommendation that council proceed to an in-camera council meeting for consideration of 2 items per section 91K of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. So, Blanchette and Salt. All in favor? Carried.